Is
What are we asking for? What's Veteran Trapeze asking for? And then how to get started?
what we're asking, what VFP is asking for is the impanelment of a grand jury, an old-fashioned federal grand jury. Grand juries historically and legally are empowered to investigate kind of broadly, and ultimately, and thus also are empowered, of course, to narrow down their investigations to actually punch out criminal indictments, obviously criminal charges that are then prosecuted in federal courts. We're asking for that, respecting Tony Blinken, uh, based initially on the ProPublica article of a couple of weeks ago that revealed that Blinken in April and May of 2024 had considerable information available to him from two in-house agencies, USAID and the Bureau of Population and something else within the State Department, both of which in considerable detail, with very detailed cover memos as well as incident reports, showed that there has been almost since the beginning of the Israeli invasion of Gaza, constant messing with obstructionism, out and out sabotage of humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza, and actually then the dispersal of aid within the Gaza Strip. The fact is, apparently, that Secretary Blinken had copious information as well as the explicit written advice from at least two of his underlings saying that the obstructionism demonstrated by the Israeli Defense Force is such that it should require the termination of military and other aid to the nation of Israel. This, of course, would be a critical thing to do in the middle of a genocide, because of the fact that something on the order of 70% or more of Israel's armaments and munitions are U.S. imports, and all of their jet planes, and most of their jet plane replacement part. So the idea is, again, a theme of the Veterans for Peace is let's stop demanding some sort of abstruse adherence to principles of vetting of the aid and principles of trying to determine whether Israel is violating human rights laws and principles and treaties. Let's prosecute under U.S. law people who are U.S. lawbreakers in carrying out their duties. Blinken is a prime example. I would also like to add, just this morning, the drop site, which is the new Jeremy Scahill, Ryan Grimm investigatory news site, has a lengthy article that discusses how Blinken was intimately involved within 1 week after October 7th in negotiations face to face with Netanyahu and his underlings to establish exactly what prompts the IDF is allowed to act on to sabotage humanitarian aid shipments. Basically, this very loosey-goosey standard, which you have heard repeatedly when there have been atrocities committed, when human rights workers are assassinated by drones and other means by the IDF, that Blinken was negotiating over a protracted long night in October of 2023 what exactly is sort of the boundaries within which the IDF has to function. And the ultimate agreed decision was essentially, if the military believes that there is obstructionism by Hamas, because that was a big supposed preoccupation, that Hamas is actually taking charge of a lot of the aid and then distributing it or hoarding it for its own, for its troops. But the apparent agreement was, if you guys feel badly, or if you suspect that there is any kind of Hamas involvement, then blast away. A great example was the March 2024 World Food Kitchen assassinations, where seven uh, World Food Kitchen workers, and this is an organization that Israel and Blinken and Biden had publicly endorsed as being, like this is the kind of organization we want instead of UNRWA, delivering humanitarian aid. So with all appropriate clearances, 7 workers in 2 cars are proceeding a short procession of trucks, delivery trucks, down the highway that parallels the Mediterranean shore. And they stopped. This was with all clearances, broad daylight, et cetera, you know, all of the imprimaturs of all of the biggies in the 2 governments. And they stopped, and by prearrangement, which they had disclosed to the IDF, they pick up a guy who happens to have a gun, I guess, who is supposed to be their guide. They need a guide because there are so many streets destroyed, so much rubble blocking the paths. This guy knows whatever twisted maze there is to the warehouses where they were going to deliver the aid. And within moments, a drone proceeds to blast away at the 2 cars, kills 3 or 4 of them in one, kills several of them in one vehicle. The survivors jump out and get in the other car, and it proceeds, and the drone proceeds to blast them. So 7 people are dead. It's an absurd thing. And the official excuse of the IDF was, well, they picked up that armed dude, and that was Hamas, clearly. So there you go. There's an example of this ridiculous circumstance where Israel gets to determine who the combatants are. They get to determine on sheer guesswork with no evidence, with a cleared expedition they destroy it. It's a little bit difficult to say that it was accidental. So anyway, that's what we're doing. We're trying to direct attention to the fact that there is law breaking going on, crime in the suites, crime in the U.S. State Department on the order of humanitarian rights and war crimes and genocidal legal violations. And not incidentally, in May of 2024, Blinken, after reviewing the 2 reports with meticulous and copious documentation of Israel's sabotage of humanitarian aid deliveries, finds officially and reports to Congress that he sees nothing that rises to the level of terminating aid to Israel, military aid to Israel, and thus the genocide continues.